about for a minute episode 9. We've known for 2 weeks now it's got a title. So for now and forever, it will be known as The Last... Wait, that's not right. The Rise of Skywalker. Let's break it down. What does it mean? Because I do think that this title is one of the best Star Wars titles that we've gotten. The best Star Wars titles out there are the ones that are kind of, you don't really understand, like, what do they mean? The Force Awakens. Okay, how's The Force Awakening? Then you see the movie and you realize, oh, it was Rey. The Last Jedi. Who's the Last Jedi? Is it Rey? Is it Luke? Is it something else? It was Luke. The Phantom Menace. That title's ingenious because going in, like, the Phantom Menace, what the hell does that mean? And then you watch the movie and realize, oh, it's Palpatine. The Phantom Menace is essentially a movie about the most evil man in the galaxy gaining the presidency, right? It's about Palpatine coming to power. And nobody knows it. Nobody knows that this evil human being is now the most powerful human being in the galaxy. And like that, The Phantom Menace, fantastic title. I love that. My favorite movie of all time. The movie poster that's up here that you can never see, right up there. Return of the Jedi is, okay, is Jedi plural or singular? Is it Return of the Jedi as like all of them? Like, or is it Return of Luke Skywalker? That's why I read it. Like Luke Skywalker he's the Jedi. Jedi is singular. It's not plural in that title. Luke Skywalker represents everything that the Jedi are meant to be, and it's him coming into his own. It's the Jedi as they should be returning in the form of one person, Luke Skywalker. Return of the Jedi. My point here being, the best Star Wars titles are always the ones that you can't really understand what it's talking about and what it means until you've actually seen the film. That's what this is. The Rise of Skywalker. And that's what I want to talk about. What does the title mean? And I think the title will end up meaning one of three things. So let's start with the obvious one. Let's get that out of the way. The Rise of Skywalker. Is it talking about the redemption of Ben Solo? Ben casting out Kylo and becoming Ben Solo again. Is that what this movie is going to be about? And I think that's likely, and quite frankly, I want that to happen. I want Ben Solo to come back to the light, or at least meet in the middle with Grey. And I know a lot of people say, well, we've already done that. We did that with Anakin. Are we really going to do that again? And I was like, yeah, we did do that with Anakin. But we have a unique opportunity here where, like, Anakin Skywalker, he came back to the light, but it took his sacrifice and his death to do that. So Anakin comes back to the light, becomes good again, but then he dies. We have an opportunity here to show Ben Solo coming back to the light and not necessarily meeting death at the same point. I want to see a character, an evil character who becomes good again, who then has to live with the evil that he committed while he was evil, while he was representing the dark side. And that's something that we haven't seen in Star Wars before. The only example of that is Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi made that horrible mistake, caused the domino effect that led to the sequel trilogy, and Luke Skywalker had to live with that as a part of him for the remainder of his life, and ultimately he sacrificed himself to try to rectify it and start to right the situation. That's the only instance of seeing a good person having to pay consequences of bad deeds. That's not something that we see very often in Star Wars, and I think you have the opportunity to do that with Ben Solo, and I think that would be so interesting if that's what they did. So evidence to that, The Rise of Skywalker. There are only 2 living Skywalkers, Leia Organa. Her role in the movie has to be predetermined by whatever footage they have of her. Carrie Fisher has, we all know that she's passed on, and she's on a different plane of existence now from us. Probably still watching us, though, and laughing at us, which we all love Carrie. Love you, Carrie. It comes down to Ben Solo. Who's the Skywalker that this story is actually about? It's Ben Solo. Kylo Ren. He doesn't have the name Skywalker, but he has the blood. At the end of the trailer, at the end of the episode 9 teaser, when we see the image of Star Wars and it opens up and we saw the Rise of Skywalker appear for the first time, the music playing over that is Kylo's theme. It's played in a different, I'm not a music guy, a different note, a different something, sorry. It's played in a different fashion, but it is Kylo's theme being played over this. So there's your evidence of that. I am calling for the redemption of Ben Solo, so there you go. Theory number 2 is The Rise of Skywalker. Is it talking about Rey? And the fact that Rey isn't a blood Skywalker, but as of right now, Rey doesn't have a last name. She doesn't have a surname. So what if Rey, by the end of this film, takes on the name Skywalker? She's not Rey Skywalker by blood, but she is Rey Skywalker in terms of she's inherited the name. This is connected to the other theory that I subscribe to. Is it Rey Palpatine? Is Rey's heritage Palpatine's? Is she the great-great-granddaughter of Sheev Palpatine himself? And how thematically perfect for these 9 films if we end with our main character, Rey's a Palpatine, and despite the fact that she does have a last name now, and it is Palpatine, she rejects her blood last name and takes on the name Skywalker. How thematically incredible would that be if a Palpatine rejects her name and takes on the name Skywalker instead? That would just be... Mwah! JJ, if you do that, you get it, man. You just get it. Theory number 3. Is Rey going to restart the Jedi Order? By the end of this, is she going to restart the Jedi, but rename it? And now people who are students of the Force, people who wield lightsabers and use the Force and go around the galaxy saving people, everything a Jedi should represent, everything Luke, non-violence, everything Luke represented and Qui-Gon represented before him. Those people, what if Rey doesn't call them Jedi anymore? What if the next generation of Jedi will not be Jedi? They will be known as Skywalkers. How awesome would that be? Let's get religious here for a minute. And if you're not a religious person, that's okay. Just hold on. Whether you're religious or not, George Lucas was. The original trilogy essentially was George Lucas tackling the Hero with a Thousand Faces. The original trilogy was George Lucas doing his version of Joseph Campbell. The themes throughout history that keep showing up over and over again in different cultures who don't always have contact with one another. Human beings, we all think alike, and the same storytelling methods and themes keep popping up throughout history. That's what the Hero with a Thousand Faces is, right? It's Joseph Campbell looking at history and being like, that's interesting. Everyone's kind of talking about the same thing. And what George Lucas did with the original trilogy is he looked at those stories, the blueprint that runs through that kind of all human storytelling, and he goes, I'm going to make my own version of that. And the original trilogy was born. When it was time to do the prequel trilogy, now George moved on, and essentially now he's tackling the Bible, breaking down the themes that the Bible has. Whether you believe it's fact or stories or whatever, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you believe it's true or not. The stories are there, and they're the most influential stories in human history. The prequel trilogy was essentially George Lucas taking those stories and going, all right, I'm going to do my version of this. I mean, if you don't believe me, Anakin Skywalker was a virgin birth, people. That's just the most basic similarity. I could go on for days. A lot of people who aren't religious don't realize that the Christian religion, Jesus Christ was Jewish. It comes from Judaism. And Christianity literally means followers of Christ. So with the religious themes of George Lucas in mind, which is what his prequel trilogy are about and what in retrospective he turned the original trilogy into. The story of essentially one family. So the Bible is the story of the descendants of Abraham, the Jewish people, right? The episodic Star Wars films are about the story of Skywalker and his descendants, right? Anakin, Luke, Leia, Ben Solo. Christianity came from Judaism. Skywalker, the new name for the religion and of Force users, came from the old religion that was called Jedi. Judaism to Christianity, Jedi to Skywalker. It's interesting. We're just having fun here, guys. Don't get upset over it. I just think it's cool. I love the themes. I'm fascinated by the themes of Star Wars, and that I think fits right in. I mean, Luke he represents the guy who gets it. He represents the guy who understands what it means to be a Jedi. He's the example that everybody should be following. So I think it's so fitting, especially when you look at the religious themes that run throughout Star Wars, that Rey would rename the religion, or really start a new one, Skywalker, rather than Jedi. And I love that. I think that's fantastic. Best part about this is that, honestly, I love all three of those theories. All three of them can come to pass. You could have Ben Solo be redeemed. You could have Rey taking on the name Skywalker, and you could have Rey restarting the Jedi Order and naming it Skywalker, the Skywalker Order. When I look at this title, when I think about it, that's what I think it's going to mean. I think it's going to be a variation of one of those things. And I think any three of those things is something that I would be happy with. So there you have it. The Rise of Skywalker. What do you guys think it means? For all 5 of you who are going to watch this, at least one of you leave a comment down below. Let me know. Let's talk about it. Let's have a civilized conversation. The best kind of conversation that the internet doesn't always subscribe to. So that's it. Bye.